It's a pleasure to have you join us on another episode of the program. I am Okpayemi Owosheni. We start off with business news. The Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, in collaboration with Rolling Energy, has announced the commencement of the nationwide mass transit conversion program. The announcement was made at the PCNGI launch of the conversion and refueling site in Ilorin on May 29th. A statement by the PCNGI said the initiative aims to convert mass transit vehicles to cleaner energy sources, significantly reducing emissions and promoting environmental sustainability. The PCNGI is the program of President Bola Tinubu's administration dedicated to promoting clean energy solutions across Nigeria. Through strategic partnership and innovative projects, PCNGI aims to reduce environmental impact and support the transition to sustainable energy for the transport sector. We'll go on a short break and be back with more stories in the corporate world. Welcome back. A report by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has shown that the Port Harcourt refinery will start petrol production within the next quarter. This is according to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Eneke Lokpobiri. Lokpobiri revealed this to newsmen on the first anniversary of President Bola Tinubu's administration. The minister said that the NNPC gives him weekly reports which shows that hydrocarbon has been introduced, which means that within the shortest possible period, petrol production will begin. You, however, said that even with the introduction of hydrocarbons, there is a need to check for leakages, as it is a very gigantic facility. We'll go on a break now, but when Money Matter returns, we'll be assessing President Tinubu's performance in the economic sector in the past year. Don't go away. Welcome back. President Tinubu's first year in office has faced significant economic challenges marked by continuous inflation and bold policy decisions. Upon assuming office in May 2023, the country's inflation stood at a rate of 22.41% according to the NBS. However, by April 2024, this rate had soared to 33.70%, the highest inflation observed since the inauguration of successive governments since 1999. One of President Tinubu's first major action was the removal of the fuel subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate, announced during his inauguration on May 29, 2023. The removal of the petrol subsidy led to more than tripling of pump prices. Simultaneously, the floating of the naira resulted in a significant devaluation, causing the currency's value to plunge. These changes sparked a sharp increase in headline inflation, with food inflation being particularly affected. Economists have largely attributed the rising cost of food to the high expenses associated with transportation. As transportation costs also surge, so did the prices of food items, making it a major driver of inflation. This has had a very direct impact on the cost of living, significantly affecting ordinary Nigerians. While the removal of the petrol subsidy has resulted in a 50% reduction in petrol importation, it has also worsened the country's inflation situation. Similarly, the exchange rate policy has led to a significant loss in the value of the naira, following the massive devaluation. In response to these challenges, the federal government has turned to borrowing through FGN bonds with amounts ranging from 200 to 700 billion naira until February 2024, when the Debt Management Office, that's the DMO, announced a 2.5 trillion naira bond auction. The Central Bank of Nigeria has also implemented several reforms to rein in inflation, including recapitalizing banks, selling dollars to bureau de change operators, and increasing the monetary policy rate for the third consecutive time to 26.25%. According to economists, the impact of these measures remains uncertain, as it is yet to be seen if they will have the desired effect. Economic growth was a key component of President Bola Tinubu's 8-point agenda when he was sworn into office a year ago. Has the economy truly grown over the past year? This remains a critical question. While some policies have been aimed at stabilizing the economy and increasing government revenue, their unintended consequences have posed significant challenges, particularly in terms of inflation and the cost of living. Well, joining me to discuss this further is public policy enthusiast Femi Oladele. Many thanks for joining me on the program, Mr. Oladele. Now, it's been a long year. How would you assess President Tinubu's overall performance in his first year of office, particularly in terms of economic management?
Yes, thank you so much for having me again. This is a very difficult question. We all know personally, I have my opinion, but I will just talk generally from a public opinion view. Then I will share a little bit about my own opinion. From an economic standpoint, we could say that the administration looks like they have good intentions, but good intentions alone is not enough. So if we talk about results that people can see, we don't have the results that we anticipated, considering their expectations when they came in 1 year ago. So I would not say we know that there are some positives and there are many negatives. So generally, on the positive side, for example, we see that the posted unemployment figure reduced a little. We also see that we have some good inflows, foreign portfolio investments that came in, although not as expected. And so those are the main positives I can recall right now. For the negatives, we know that already. Rates have gone significantly high, inflation is high. And so if I say from the standpoint of a layman on the street, I would say they haven't done well as expected. But we know also that things haven't happened the way we want it to happen, even from an enlightened person's view. So basically, and generally, I would not say that economically that they have done well.
During his inauguration on May 29, 2023, President Bola Tinubu presented a 8-point agenda. Now, based on this 8-point agenda, economic growth was one of his agenda. Now, do you believe that the economy has grown over the past year?
Yeah, so we see GDP as a measure of that. We would say that would be a yes. But also, we understand that beyond GDP, we want to see economic growth in the light of how has it impacted my savings? How has it impacted my purchasing power? How has it impacted my standard of living and my cost of living? In those areas, the answer would be a no. But like I mentioned, the figures posted by the NBS shows that the economy has indeed grown. And like we also have the banking sector, insurance sector, we have seen significant growth in those sectors. So based on those parameters, we could say that the economy has grown. But when you look at the common man and those indices I just talked about, cost of living, standard of living, and inflation, we would say that the economy hasn't done so well. Yeah.
Well, the first, last pronouncement President Tinubu made during his inauguration was that fuel subsidy is gone. Yes, fuel subsidy. So now, how would you assess the impact of the petrol subsidy removal on Nigeria's economy, particularly in terms of inflation and the cost of living? And what measures do you think the government could implement to mitigate these adverse effects while still achieving the intended economic reforms? Because according to the president, the main reason why fuel subsidy was removed was because the country could no longer afford to pay for fuel subsidy.
Thank you so much for that question. One thing that we have to get also is that even this administration has said and admitted at different times that the removal of the fuel subsidy, though a requirement for us to move to where we want to be, was hastily taken. Processes and plans were not fleshed out, were not finalized before that pronouncement, and that's understandable. But we have gone past that. We're not here to trade blames at this point. That has gone. But we also understand that there are indications that the government is still subsidizing the price of fuel. So I would not say that fuel subsidy is gone, but we understand that the government is still doing some things to ensure that we enjoy some form of comfort in the areas of buying fuel. So I would mention also that concerning your question, in that light, we would say that the government has not 100% achieved the goal that they want to achieve by the removal of fuel subsidy, but we have seen that at least when they came in, fuel subsidy was, the price was around 200, and now we have above 600 in some instances, in some areas rather. So what can be done? Significantly, there are two things that I think. Number one is security. There is nothing we can do if we don't have a secure nation. Secondly is ensuring that stakeholders that are averse to development are handled decisively. I want to be diplomatic in that area because we understand that there are people who are sabotaging fuel economy, so to say. So have they been handled rightly? Maybe not optimally. And if they have been handled, then we should begin to see significant increase, even more than what we currently have, significant increase in our crude oil production daily. And that would also impact the figures that we'll be seeing. So basically, I would say in response to what can be done, fix security, ensure that our nation is secure, and also ensure that we increase and we ramp up daily production of crude. I think that answers the two questions, your two-in-one question.
Okay, so let's talk about exchange rates now. The unification of the exchange rate and the subsequent floating of the naira affected the economy in diverse ways. What measures do you think can be taken to stabilize the naira and also restore investor confidence?
Thank you so much for that question. Just like the fuel issue that we talked about, the issue is that before this administration, we were around 400, and now we're above 1,400 thereabout. And so the floating, I always hold the position that when you talk about economic issues, there is no left or right. There are many things to consider. So we cannot say, oh, it was wrong or it was, it depends on how we are able to handle those situations. So currently, now that we have this situation, we know that the government has been intervening in the market and ensuring that there is a bit of stability in that area. We saw that in previous months until just recently when we saw a little bit more depreciation of our currency. But we understand that the government is working hard in that area. What I would recommend is, number one, and I think that I think I have had many other analysts mention that a fusion of our monetary and fiscal policies, that's very significant. We can't make so much progress if we are focusing only on fiscal or only on the monetary policy space. So a fusion of that. Also, there are other basic things that need to be taken care of. I've mentioned security is coming up again. We have to do a lot in that space. And there are other two areas that I believe, not in the short term, in the long run, would add value to what we currently have. Improving our educational system and our health system. With focus on those two areas, we are developing people who can do the right things and make the right choices. And with that, I believe that in the short term, I don't think that there is, except we have someone that gives us a significant windfall. But in the medium to long term, I believe that when security is tackled and there is significant focus in the educational space and in healthcare, we'll begin to see improvements.
Let's move away from, let's talk about inflation now, food inflation particularly, because it's one of the main factors driving inflation in the country. And as of April 2024, it rose to as high as 40.53% on a year-on-year basis. Are there specific sectors within the agriculture and transportation sectors that could be targeted to alleviate food price pressures, which is quite high at the moment?
Thank you. So food is life. I love food a lot. Okay, so I believe significantly that one of the significant drivers for food inflation, it looks like we're just mentioning security. If people are able to go to their farms, then because there is restiveness in the area, then definitely there will be issues. We understand that from the scientific standpoint, there are times where contributory factors like rain, drought, infection, and all of that comes to play and affects production. But we also know that access to farms is significant, and Nigeria has suffered that in recent times. Benue State, core northern states where there is significant production of food have been impacted by insecurity. I believe that we should fix those. Also, we look at infrastructure to support agricultural endeavors in the areas of storage and in the areas of raw material production. Generally, we should begin to look beyond the ability of people to use subsistence farming. That cannot take us anywhere. Commercial farming is the way to go, and it is not cheap. If we need to go big time on agriculture, then we need government support for farmers, real farmers, and not emergency farmers. Because what we have seen over the time is that when government rolls out programs and plans for farmers, you begin to see emergency farmers who possibly divert the money to other ventures. Whereas the agricultural sector may not get optimal value from those programs. So government needs to focus on supporting commercial scaling agricultural production in Nigeria. Currently also, we know that many state governments have started doing that. We read about Kebbi State, we read about Niger State, even Lagos State. We read about so many state governors that are trying to improve production in that area. We hope that others can also join and we begin to see the dividends of those investments.
Well, you've mentioned so many factors, but then I would like to know, like, are there any specific sector within the agriculture sector that you think needs to be improved on that could help to rein in inflation as regards food inflation in the country?
Yes, so, Nigeria, we have staple foods, general foods that people love to eat, and most times are readily available. We have rice, beans, and cassava. We also have yam. So in those areas, crop production and animal production, I believe that those are the significant areas that we could impact, and we have comparative advantages in those areas. I would not say that for animal production that we have comparative advantage, because the current system may not significantly drive the kind of growth that we expect. There have been calls for ranching, there have been calls for improved crop production. If we don't adopt those methodologies, those better methodologies, it's not likely that we'll see the kind of growth that we desire. And like I mentioned earlier, to see those kind of growth, to focus attention from the local production methodologies to the improved production methodologies requires a lot. It's capital intensive, and many people are able to access those funds or don't even know how to access those funds. So we'll begin to request that the National Orientation Agency and all others interested in developing, all other stakeholders in the development sector begin to push that information to farmers, to target them and make them aware of the access to those funds and how they can maximize them to develop their farms. There might be those who have competence, but they don't have funds. There might be those who have funds, but they don't have competence. There needs to be a coming together to see how we can maximize that. But in the areas of resources, we have significant land area, we have water as well, and we have lots of sunshine. So we only need technology to drive our agricultural production.
How sustainable do you think is the current level of government borrowing through FGN bonds, especially considering the recent 2.5 trillion naira bond auction?
So sustainability is a significant and I would say controversial word, because if the debt management office, they have their criteria for defining what sustainable debt means and ability to pay and all of that, we understand that those politics also. excuse me, that come around when with respect to debt sustainability. But what I am more interested in when I hear about this is, are we applying those funds where they are required, or are we just creating opportunities for other people to get their pockets fat? Once debt is not necessarily bad if it is maximized. And so we have to ask ourselves the real questions. When we take this, when we get these funds, do we maximize them? Are we applying them optimally to sectors that truly need them for our growth? So those are the questions that are more pertinent to my heart than thinking about, oh, the amount, the figure, and all of that. What I am basically interested in is application, so that I'm not telling my children or their children that, oh, the government of my own time borrowed money that they are now having to repay with no visible evidence of what that fund was applied for.
Well, let's talk about the Apex Bank now. The economy has seen so many policies being introduced into it by the Apex Bank. What is your assessment of the reforms, such as the recapitalization of banks, selling of dollars to bureau de change operators, and in particular the increment of the monetary policy rate, which has been increased 3 times now? Now, how effective do you think the reforms are likely to be in controlling inflation and stabilizing the economy?
So I think I've answered this question before. I remember saying then that basically on its own, it's a singular contribution. There are many things that affect inflation. It's not just one policy that can rein in inflation. No matter what we do in that space, even if rates are increased again, it's not automatic that we'll just get the results that we want if those other contributing factors don't add value to the government's economic development plans and projects. So we need to see it in that light. Yes, monetary policy is based on widely held theory. They are following that trend, and where the results are trickling in. But that alone cannot affect inflation on its own. We need a combination. We need the economy to, we need to ramp up trust, which is significantly deficient right now. We need to get the buy-in of the people. We need also the fiscal policy stakeholders to join hands with monetary policy stakeholders and see how we can work things out. We need security to become better. We need efforts in, like I mentioned earlier, education, the health sector. The happy people will make better decisions. Enlightened people will make better decisions. Healthy people will make better decisions. So we need all of that as under an umbrella to ensure that we are able to deliver the kind of growth that we want. So on its own, the contribution of the monetary policy to inflation would just be significantly insignificant.
Well, all of these measures being implemented by the federal government, the Apex Bank, is aimed to at making the economy a better place. But then, in as much as this is meant to make the economy a better place, the people have been affected adversely. So now, what measures do you think can be implemented to support vulnerable populations during this period of economic adjustment?
Okay, so we understand that the federal government recently gave out 50,000 naira to, the expectation is that that will be given to 1 million people. For a fact, I know someone who accessed that fund, so I can say authoritatively that at least I know someone who got the 50,000 naira cash transfers. And that's an area of interest for me right now because I'm currently working on cash transfers in Sub-Saharan Africa. So the government has already released that. I also read recently that there's another one coming on stream soon. I think 75,000 naira. I also know that aside that there have been other forms of very generous loans and grants to businesses. State governments too are doing that. Oyo State is doing the safer program. I can't remember the acronym now for safer. Osun State is doing something on Omoluabi cash transfers. Lagos State is doing cash transfers. Many states across are doing cash transfers. We see Edo State recently signed a bill to sign something concerning the minimum wage, raising it to 70,000. I read about Zamfara just implementing, albeit late, the 30,000 naira. So I believe that cash transfers to vulnerable families, vulnerable groups is significant. Also, I hear that the government is doing a lot in the area of training. For example, the 3MTT, trying to raise human capital skills, helping people to become better so they can get better jobs. That's significant also. But we also know that my firm belief is that we have to have a strategy. If you ask today, what is our social protection strategy? I'm not sure. So I wouldn't be so certain to say we don't have, but I'm not sure it's clear enough. Our social protection strategy in Nigeria, I'm not sure it's very clear enough. We need clarity in that space where everyone knows this is the government's agenda towards social protection.
Year down. The president, Mr. Oladele, it is just 1 year down. The president still has 3 more years to go before his tenure ends. Now, what short-term and long-term policy recommendations would you give to the Tinubu's administration to address the current economic challenges in the country?
So for short term, I believe that they're already doing most of the things that I would have recommended. For long term, except I have access to some documents, I won't know what their plans are. And I don't think it's different from what they should be doing. I believe that Nigeria has lots of resources, I mean human resources that can drive the kind of growth that we desire. So, for example, I am very proud of the work that the Taiwo Oyedele's committee is doing. Now, you would see that they are trying to support especially small businesses, which is an area that I have significant interest in. They are trying to support small businesses, ensure that they grow, they now become taxable. So that's a very good one. We'll begin to reap those benefits once those things come on stream. In the long run, I would say 3 core areas that we need to focus on: education, health, and infrastructure. These 3 areas would definitely drive growth. They would impact on the way that people reason and how people can use their mindsets to create and innovate products and services that will drive the growth that we desire: education, healthcare, and infrastructure.
Well, let's hope that the economy gets better in the coming years. Public policy enthusiast Femi Oladele, many thanks for lending your thoughts on the program. Well, that's it on this episode of the program. Many thanks for watching. I am Okpeyemi Owoshi, and see you next time.